If you had to name one fictional concept you'd want to see become real, what would it be? For a lot of us, the answer is simple: superheroes. We've all seen the movies, read the comics, a figure swooping in to save the day, a symbol of hope in a world that can often feel chaotic. It seems like an obvious net positive, right? They'd stop wars, prevent disasters, catch every criminal. Our world would be safer, better. It's a comforting thought. But what if I told you that this comforting thought is based on a fundamental misconception? What if the reality of superheroes wouldn't be a blockbuster movie, but a global crisis the likes of which we've never seen? The idea of superhumans among us has captivated our imagination for decades. These characters often serve as reflections of our societal values and aspirations, embodying ideals of justice, bravery, and self-sacrifice. But if we strip away the cinematic gloss and the comic book panels, what are we left with? What happens when these fantastical beings crash into our mundane, complicated reality? To answer that, we first have to consider the initial shock. Imagine the first truly public display of superpowers. Not a blurry video on the internet, but an undeniable, globally televised event. Someone stopping a runaway train with their bare hands, or flying through the sky to rescue someone from a burning building. The immediate reaction would be awe, of course, but right behind that awe would be a tidal wave of something else: fear and chaos. Psychologically, humans have a complex response to extraordinary events that shatter our understanding of the world. There would be widespread panic, not just from the display of power itself, but from the sudden, terrifying realization that the fundamental rules of our world have changed. Global markets would likely crash in the face of such profound uncertainty. Religions would be thrown into turmoil, with some proclaiming these beings as saviors or angels, and others as demons or a sign of the end times. Governments would issue contradictory statements, trying to project control over a situation they are utterly unprepared for.
But let's assume we move past that initial chaos. Society doesn't completely collapse. We adapt to this new reality. What would the new normal actually look like? Well, this is where things get really complicated, and we can start by looking at something we all understand: money, the superhuman economy. The economic impact of superheroes is almost always framed in terms of collateral damage. A fight in a city, buildings get destroyed, and there's a massive bill. One study, applying the Global Terrorism Index to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, estimated that the economic toll of just one major superhero battle could run into the hundreds of billions of dollars. But that's just scratching the surface. The real economic impact wouldn't be in destruction, but in disruption. Think of superpowers as the ultimate disruptive technology. Why would we need cargo ships, trains, and trucks if a single individual with super speed and strength could deliver goods anywhere in the world in a matter of minutes? The entire logistics and transportation industry, a multi-trillion-dollar sector of the global economy, could be rendered obsolete overnight. Construction would be revolutionized by those with super strength. Mining and resource extraction could be done with unprecedented efficiency. Someone with the ability to manipulate weather could end droughts, but also potentially hold entire agricultural sectors hostage. This isn't just an upgrade. It's a complete paradigm shift that would create unprecedented wealth for a select few and wipe out millions of jobs for everyone else. Then there's the new industries that would spring up. A multi-trillion-dollar insurance market for superhuman-related damages, a booming sector in superhuman detection and containment technologies, and of course, the commercialization of the superheroes themselves. Imagine the endorsement deals, the merchandise, the reality TV shows. We wouldn't just have heroes, we'd have brands. This economic disruption would be immediately followed by a political and military crisis.
Currently, global power is maintained through a delicate balance of economic strength and military might. The sudden introduction of individuals who can level armies would shatter that balance. How would governments react? The initial impulse would be to control and weaponize. We see this in fiction all the time, but the reality would be a frantic global arms race, not for nuclear weapons, but for superpowered individuals. Nations would pour trillions into programs to create or recruit their own assets. International relations would no longer be about treaties and diplomacy, but about who has the most powerful being on their side. Imagine a geopolitical landscape where the United States has a Superman, but China has someone who can control minds, and a small, previously insignificant nation has a person who can teleport. The potential for global conflict would be unimaginable. A new Cold War would begin, but with living,
thinking, and potentially emotionally unstable weapons of mass destruction. The legal black hole. And what about our laws? Our entire legal framework is built on the premise of a relatively level playing field. But how do you apply concepts of due process and reasonable force to someone who can move faster than a bullet? Many superheroes, by their very nature, are vigilantes, operating outside the established legal system. In the real world, this would create a legal nightmare. If a superhero stops a crime but causes billions in damages, who is liable? If they detain a suspect, what happens to that person's right to a fair trial? How can you have a jury of your peers when your peer can lift a tank? Even our most basic laws would be called into question. The United States Citizenship and Immigration Services has a category for individuals with extraordinary ability, but that's for scientists and artists, not people who can shoot lasers from their eyes. But perhaps the most profound changes would be societal and ethical. Superheroes in fiction often have a clear moral compass, but the real world is a landscape of gray areas. Consider the ethical dilemmas they would face. A hero with the ability to see the future might know about a terrorist attack before it happens. Are they morally obligated to act preemptively, even if it means punishing someone for a crime they haven't yet committed? This is the classic philosophical trolley problem, but on a global scale. What about global inequality? If a superhero can create unlimited clean energy, are they obligated to share that technology with the world, even if it means destabilizing the global economy? Or do they have the right to profit from their abilities? There are no easy answers to these questions. And how would we, the powerless majority, react to the existence of these godlike beings? Initially, there would be adoration, even worship, but over time, that could curdle into resentment and fear. Discrimination wouldn't just be based on race or religion, but on whether or not you had powers. A new and potentially terrifying social hierarchy would be born. Finally, we have to consider the superheroes themselves. We imagine them as stoic and unwavering, but they would be human. They would have flaws, biases, and emotional breaking points. The psychological pressure of being a global savior, of holding the fate of millions in your hands, would be immense. Who holds them accountable? And what happens if one of them simply decides they've had enough? Or worse, that they know what's best for humanity and decide to impose their will upon us? So, what if superheroes were real? The answer, it seems, is that our world would be transformed in ways we can barely begin to imagine. It would be a world of incredible technological and medical advancements, born from the study of these beings and their powers. But it would also be a world of unprecedented fear, inequality, and conflict. The arrival of superheroes wouldn't solve our problems, it would amplify them.